was fantastic. Thank you. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues, I am David Calloway, President of the World Editors Forum. We're here today to honor a genuinely courageous journalist, a dedicated media pioneer, and a true believer in the power that the craft of journalism can have, a tireless proponent of the positive force our profession wields when it comes to holding the powerful to account for the betterment of society. We're here to stand in solidarity with her and her news organization as together they face immense pressures, deeply personal attacks, and orchestrated attempts to undermine the professionalism and credibility of a news brand that has captured the public imagination and truly embraced what it means to be social in this digital media age. We're here to denounce the incessant online attacks against a woman who has navigated war zones and reported from conflict areas, and yet who concedes that never before has she faced a challenge so large, so all-encompassing in terms of what she has been subjected to over recent years from the anonymous online troll armies of her opponents and critics. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to award the 2018 Golden Pen of Freedom to Maria Ressa, co-founder, CEO, and executive editor of Rappler, the Philippines' leading digital-first news organization. A journalist with over 30 years of experience at the very top of her game, Maria saw the massive potential in an increasingly young demographic and its obsession with social media, especially Facebook. 97% of Filipinos online have a Facebook account. And like in so many parts of the world today, this is increasingly how people, particularly young people, are consuming and sharing information. Facebook was where Rappler experimented before it launched its website in 2012. The platform and social media was crucial to its fast growth, with a then unique distribution model to build its loyal communities of readers and contributors. In just 6 short years, Rappler has become a critical lifeline for independent investigative journalism in the Philippines, connecting with the stories that matter to people across the country, the stories that were not being told, or perhaps more accurately, that those in the power did not want to be told. Rappler is now part of the online fabric of a country that has willingly embraced social media to the extent that the platforms have become the new public space. But for all the positive aspects of this, and Rappler and Maria Ressa are testament to the optimism, potential, and possibility of this brave new world, in turn, it has given rise to a highly effective way of assaulting journalists and destabilizing professional media. The 2016 election was the Philippines' social media election. President Rodrigo Duterte came to power on a wave of populism, fueled by an impressive online campaign that galvanized support across the country for an outsider candidate and his hardline approach to law and order. But in a matter of months, the very forces that had propelled Mayor Duterte to the presidential palace turned on those who questioned the new administration's increasingly controversial policies. The media in particular, and Rappler specifically, bore the brunt of much of the ire of the administration and its proponents. Organized, fiercely patriotic, and on the face of it, anonymous legions of pro-Duterte supporters, many real, many more automated to appear so, took to the Philippines' #1 platform to drown out the criticism and attempt to fully control the discourse by occupying the public space. Maria calls it the phenomenon of the weaponization of social media. And a quick glance at some of the threats and attacks that both she and her company have faced in the last 2 years explains why. At its height, Maria says she counted 90 personal attacks an hour coming to her via email, social media, and messenger. rape and death threats, vile messages targeting her and her family, as well as Rappler reporters, all coming with a frequency and gratuity that suggested something was going on that was beyond the usual hate mail or the average vocal critic. She sent her staff to counseling, took extra security measures, and inevitably began looking over her shoulder. At the World Editors Forum, this form of pressure on journalists, particularly women, is ominously familiar. It is a form of oppression seen from governments in places such as Turkey and Mexico, Pakistan and India, and more recently in the US, where hate speech is on the rise and out in the open after years of simmering online. The threat to our work is growing more dangerous as we speak. Last year's Golden Pen recipient, John Dündar, remains in exile from his home in Turkey, as more of his colleagues from his newspaper, Cumhuriyet, are thrown in jail by a government that attacks journalists as enemies of the state. Since last year's ceremony in Durban, South Africa, 55 journalists have been killed around the world. Shot in the street, blown up in their cars, assassinated in their homes. Please join me for a brief minute of silence to honor their memories. And now join me in a brief applause to honor their great work. While our colleagues are silenced, we, their colleagues, must still pursue the truth. At Rappler, the threats would not stop them from continuing to do their job, questioning the Philippine government's war on drugs, the growing accusation of human rights abuses, and actions of police death squads, providing critical analysis of the impact of the zero-tolerance policy of President Duterte, and ultimately challenging the statistics and revealing the tragic body count of this policy in action on the ground. Maria has not backed away from publicly denouncing either the policies of hate or the hate that has come as a result of her coverage and Rappler's coverage. And Rappler has continued the reporting that was at the heart of the onslaught. But Maria's almost forensic-level analysis of who and what is behind the abuse and exposure of the sheer size and scale of the vast armies of online trolls, echoing and amplifying the messages of hate, denouncing Rappler's reporting and presenting alternative facts as a means of discrediting the journalistic process, has been breathtaking in what it has revealed. The ruthlessness, speed, and efficiency of the attacks would surely have overwhelmed a lesser individual. The result? The government, of course, dismisses having any knowledge of what is being carried out in its name, and says it cannot control how its supporters use social media and the online space. In parallel, and perhaps this is just a coincidence, it has chosen to pursue Rappler using legal and judicial apparatus at its disposal. Officials in at least 8 government agencies have attacked Rappler, and there are a number of open investigations and court decisions pending. A pattern in the country is emerging that has seen the online and offline worlds converge, both with the aim of squeezing out one of the few remaining critical voices in the Philippines media space. But Maria, ever the eternal optimist despite it all, along with colleagues from her own generation and the inspired media-savvy youngsters that have made Rappler what it is today, know all too well what is at stake. The country having only been free from dictatorship for 3 short decades. There is no escaping it. Online threats, orchestrated attacks, and relentless harassment are as real as physical attacks and have a much greater impact far more quickly than anything we've seen challenge the media before. There is no safe refuge for journalism online. If anything, it is more at risk from attack from all sides. We hope at the World Editors Forum that by awarding the Golden Pen of Freedom to Maria Ressa, the Philippine government will pause before it considers its next move, that it takes stock of what its actions mean for the democratic future of the country and its millions of people. A free media is the sign of a strong, confident political system, one that trusts its people and has understood the electoral bargain. Encouraging criticism and participation ensures accountability, something President Duterte should understand. We hope the Golden Pen also deters those who seek to undermine media independence and the profession of journalism by showing the solidarity that the award represents. When all else fails, we should know that we have each other to rely upon if we are to continue making the kind of impact, breaking the sorts of stories, and shining our light into the dark corners in a way our communities have come to expect from us. The way Rappler has been doing and will keep on doing. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in applauding Maria Ressa, the 2018 laureate of the Golden Pen of Freedom.
David, Juan Ifra, fellow journalists, thank you. You don't really know who you are until you're forced to fight to defend it. I'm so fortunate to see so many familiar faces from the time when we used to be reporters. I didn't really know. What I'm going through now has forced me to really figure out how far will you go. When you're forced to fight to defend who you are, every battle you win or lose, every compromise you choose to make or to walk away from, all of these things, these struggles define the values that make you ultimately who you are. So it doesn't matter what you think you were. Each moment tests who you are today. We at Rappler decided that a decade from now, we don't want to look back. We want to know that when we look back, we did everything we could at this moment in time. We did not duck. We did not hide. For the past 2 years, we've been fighting impunity on two fronts. Our government, which is fundamentally changing our constitution and our way of life, starting with a brutal drug war, and Facebook. We know its best and its worst. It enabled Rappler's fast growth and also later became the battleground for online state-sponsored hate that silenced voices that questioned. And in David's words, it allowed manufactured accounts to occupy the public space. Let's talk about government impunity. You're seeing a slide from the Facebook page of the Philippine National Police. They posted this December last year. The Philippine National Police announced that in the drug war, you can look here, nearly 4,000 people died in anti-drug operations, right? Look just below that, and you can see that it also admits in the drug war that 16,000 other people, other deaths, are under investigation. That's more than 20,000 people killed in a little more than a year and 4 months. Contrast that with 3,240 people killed during martial law from 1972 to 1981. Why don't you know that more than 20,000 people have been killed? Because in the first 3 months of the drug war, when journalists tried to report the casualty figures, the government just changed them, slicing and dicing people and numbers, demanding we report only what they say. Simultaneously, journalists were battered into submission by unrelenting, orchestrated attacks on Facebook. Hashtag real numbers, that's the government's hashtag. That death toll was the first casualty in our war for truth. When a lie is repeated 10 times, truth has a chance to catch up. But when it's repeated 1,000,000 times, it becomes the truth, especially when it's backed by online state-sponsored hate that exploits the fracture lines of society. Let's go to Facebook's impunity. Here's just one example of how the platform was used to turn our world upside down. Unlike the West, surveys long showed that journalists were trusted in the Philippines, largely because our weak institutions and our patronage-driven politics meant people appealed for justice to news groups. Our stories mattered. In January this year, the Pew Research Center released its Global Attitude Survey, where the Philippines was number 2 globally in terms of trust in traditional media. Look at the number. 86% of those surveyed said they felt traditional media was, and this is the quote, fair and accurate. Now, contrast that with EON, the local version of the Edelman Trust Survey. That showed that among those on social media, and you're talking about almost 60 million accounts, so among Filipinos on social media, that red number, very small, it says 83% said they had a negative perception of traditional media. 86% trust fair and accurate traditional media, but if you're on social media, 83% have a negative perception. This rapid re-engineering of reality happened on Facebook, where the tools of our profession were turned against us to incite hate, create straw enemies, to build alternative realities. Free speech stifled free speech, successfully creating the spiral of silence in our society from August 2016 to August 2017. What happened in August 2017? 3 teenage boys were killed in the drug war and woke our nation. This propaganda on social media was meant not just to mislead our people to control the public narrative, it is meant to overwhelm and attack journalists at a deeper, damaging psychological level. This is a new threat. We've never really dealt with this before. While in the past, you were thrown in jail, now the prison is inside the walls of Facebook and in our heads. Conquering that means confronting our individual fears. And regardless of what we perceive to be the consequences to our reputations, to our communities, we have to find the courage to report what we see. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just happening in the Philippines. According to Freedom House in November 2017, in at least 30 of 65 countries it studied globally, cheap armies on social media are rolling back democracy. In India, South Africa, in Mexico, this happens on Twitter. Other countries, it happens on WhatsApp. Social media platforms are now choice tools for authoritarian rule. The data we've collected from Facebook show that women bear the brunt of these attacks, many of them sexual, aimed to strip us of our dignity and to bludgeon us into submission. So how do we survive? We look for solutions. We have no choice, right? In the long term, it's education. Medium term, media literacy. In the short term, investigative journalism. We have to keep shining the light. And right now, since the new gatekeepers are American tech companies, the irony, they hold the power right now to turn our world right side up. So, Rappler is actively working with Facebook. I think we give new meaning to the word frenemy. To my friends there and on other social media platforms, please move away from technological colonialism. Remember that every day you do not act in the global south, people die. When power, money, when power, money, and fear come together, it means good journalism is very bad business. After Rappler hit positive EBITDA 2 years ago, startup to positive EBITDA, we hit break even in less than half the time a traditional news group would do it. Well, after the government attacks began, it brought us to an existential moment. We're determined to survive. I have plans B, C, D, E, you name it. But please, while I have your attention, help slingshot us through what I anticipate will be a valley of death in the next few months. Join our crowdfunding effort. All you have to do is on your browser, type rappler.com/support. Thank you, Juan Ifra, for having our backs. This is a global battle we have to win. To the men and women of Rappler, and it is 1 a.m. in Manila, and I know they are watching. This is your courage. You continue to inspire me. My heart breaks when I look up. When I look at what our young reporters and our staff have to live through, have to go through, and the courage that they show in the face of brute force and this impunity, the respect that they continue to show authorities, the nightmares they fight at night, the mission that lives inside them.
Have you ever been harassed because of your work?
Sorry, hold on.
Yes.
Have you been threatened on?
Sorry.
Ay, oo.
This award goes beyond Rappler. And if you please, there are several Filipino journalists in the audience. Please stand up. Our colleagues, our comrades in arms, please recognize the Filipino journalists who are trying to do our jobs. One minute 30 of other journalists, and you will see a slip of a girl. Her name is Pia Ranada. She is our palace reporter. She speaks directly and was kicked out of the palace. She is the constant friend of President Duterte. 1 minute 30 of what our journalists are facing in the Philippines. Please.
Have you ever been harassed because of your work?
Yes.
Have you been threatened online?
Ay, oo.
Have you been called biased?
Yes.
Have you been called stupid?
Yes, plenty times. By idiots.
Have you been called disrespectful?
Yes.
Have you been accused of corruption?
Yes.
Have you been called ugly as a response to any story?
Yes.
Have you been called fake news?
Oh yeah, they always say I'm fake news. Anything that's critical is fake, right?
Have you been accused of being an imperialist spy?
Yes.
Have you been accused of being a communist operative?
Yes.
Have you been accused of working for the CIA?
Yes.
Have you been sexually harassed as a journalist?
Yes.
Has your family been threatened, harassed, or alluded to?
Yes, it has. Specifically, my daughter. When she died, there were a lot of people who made fun of that.
Have you been threatened with rape?
Yes.
Yes.
No, not me, but my family.
Have you been threatened with violence?
Yes.
Have you been threatened with death?
Yes.
Have you been told how you're going to be killed?
Yes.
Has the violence been described to you?
Yeah, blow my head off or bury me alive.
What will stop you from reporting?
Nothing.
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 Death.
You have to kill me.
The Golden Pen of Freedom also goes beyond journalists in the age of social media. So this award is also for the Filipinos who are holding the line, and there are many also out there getting the same types of threats, fighting back. And I want to do a special shout out to the men and women inside the Philippine government. Because your choices, every compromise you make, will determine the future our nation will have. This is for all Filipinos who continue to fight for our values, to stand for the rule of law, and to #defend press freedom. My name is Maria Ressa. We are Rappler, and we will hold the line.
Muito boa tarde. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Portugal. It's quite an honor to be here after your amazing speech. I really had a lot of questions ready for you, but I'm speechless, in fact. So, congratulations for you and all the Rappler journalists here and all the journalists in general. Besides Maria Ressa, we also have Karen Peterson, Director of Public Policy and of the media group Schibsted, that's right, has been elected chairwoman of the World Association of Newspapers and News Publishers. Its mission is to protect the rights of journalists across the world to operate free media. And we also have the president of the World Editors Forum, Dave Calloway. Welcome also, both of you, to Portugal. Maria, I had a lot of questions, but you answered most of them in your beautiful, amazing speech. But you also, as we have seen in the video, you've also been accused of all those awful things, right? And you also have been threatened with your life, to rape. How do you manage? Because when the Rappler got targeted for closure, you said something like, we are just journalists, and yet there's a lot of effort being put to turning journalism into a crime, which it shouldn't be. It isn't. We're speaking true to power. That's what we do. That's what makes a democracy successful. We're not afraid. How do you manage to continue not afraid every single day?
Because I think this is a fight we can win. And I think that, I thought hard about who are our allies. There are men and women in government who are trying to hold the line. But, we've been journalists a very long time. I won't say how many, but how many years. But when I see power combined with money, and then with this kind of exponential fear that really that smashes you, you take stock. And I think, strangely enough, this is 2 years of these online attacks, so bring it, you get inured to it at a certain point. And the thing is, look at the data. You will know if it's real, you will know if it's not. And after we went through this psychological barrage, when the government filed the cases, and there's several. I have a case where I could face anywhere from 5 to 15 years in prison. Strangely enough, that's easier to deal with because when President Duterte says something, I can respond to him. When a fake account, or when an account that you have no idea whether the account is real or not, do you respond to that? So in many ways, traditional journalists who have standards and ethics, we are handcuffed in the age of social media. And that is why this is a particularly vicious and effective tool against us. So sorry, it's a long-winded answer because I've been thinking about it for 2 years.
Yes, I can imagine.
It is, let's say, I have hope, great hope, and
And
I'm
hope
not,
overcomes your fear, maybe. It has to, I believe. We also, together with this World News Media Congress, we're also living these next 2 days, the Women in News Summit. One of the things is that if they target your work, but you have been a target of the increasingly hostile gender targeting. So that's one thing that, as a woman journalist, also worries me. Do you think it's worse for you because you're a woman?
yeah, absolutely. The data shows it. I mean, Julie Passetti will say as early as 2014, women were targeted on Twitter globally 3 times more than men. Mm-hmm. Our data shows much more than that. We're in the process of crunching it. We're talking about, we call it the Shark Tank, this kind of propaganda machine. Yeah. 350 million comments. These are all public comments. 12 to 15 million accounts that are part of it. And when you're bombarded with that, it changes the values of a society. So those are my fears. My fears is that the next generation, the Philippines is always at the top of all the gender equity studies. But after we go through something like this, what happens to the values of the next generation when it is okay to threaten rape or be sexist or be misogynistic, and young men see it? And the worst attacks have not come from bots, right? I've called out, the only way you deal with this is shine the light. So I publicly post it on my page, and then when I do that, one man in particular who was quite vicious, his school within 12 hours contacted me. He was just graduating college. So I worry, and that's part of the reason, positive and negative, right? In a way, that means our cultures, in a strange way, are merging, but that means that this kind of stuff, if we allow it to continue to happen, will bring worse values to our cultures.
Yeah. Karen, so you have spent all your life in journalism, politics, advocacy, and you told me that what fundamentally drives you is the belief that journalism has the power to make the world a better place. You still agree? You still fight for it?
I do agree, but first let me say congratulations, and I'm just in awe of you and the work that you do. It's such an honor to be on the same stage as you, Maria. And just to your point and to your question, I think, so I come from Sweden, which is one of the oldest and most peaceful and oldest democracies in the world, and it's very peaceful. It's a consensus society. But the same mechanisms that you describe, we have them even in our political sphere, in our public sphere. This polarization, the levels of rage, the levels of fear, the levels of aggression are on the rise. And I think we need, as an industry, to think very deeply about, of course, supporting each other, as we try to do, but also to think about this new layer of technology, this information infrastructure, and as an industry, put pressure on these giant companies to step up and to deal with these problems that we see all over the world, because it's the same from the US to the Philippines to India to Sweden. It's happening everywhere. So that's a mission for us, I think.
And regarding this question regarding the gender-targeted hate campaign.
Yeah.
We will also have some special thoughts on it. Maybe you have, because you cannot forget places in media, right?
No, I just completely agree. I think you talk about, I love the sentence you use. You talk about a spiral of silence, and I think it's a fact that many voices, more and more voices are now left out of the conversation or are too scared to participate. And many times we see in the public sphere that, I mean, these are often targeted attacks directed. It's a political tool to silence people, propaganda with political purposes behind it, to actually silence certain groups of people and to make the public debate more narrow and be dominated by other groups. So it's a big problem. I've lived in the public sphere myself and seen this, I mean, personally, and I have many colleagues, as I said, even in my country, that just don't participate anymore because of death threats and because of the levels of hate. So it's true what you say. That's my point.
Mm. So Dave, what do you think are the main challenges to media freedom worldwide? I know it's, well, at least two challenges.
Obviously, the main challenges to media freedom are, in the individual governments that are trying to use it against us, but more importantly, the collective use of the weaponization of social media and the internet. This is, threats to journalists predate social media. I mean, online, we've had threats as long as we've had email. Before that, many of us will remember getting letters at our newspapers. Threats to women journalists are often more heinous because they often involve sexual assault intended to strip the dignity, as Maria said. But what's happened is that the tools that we've used to get our news out has exponentially increased the amount of threats and the pace at which they come. I wrote a column in 2001 criticizing the then Bush government, and I generally received about 60 to 100 emails per column. I received 4,000 emails in 24 hours. Just before there was Twitter, my email screen was going like this. This was an orchestrated campaign by real human beings who had been mobilized and told to send these emails. Now, automate that and force it into, and use automated bots that can just keep firing and keep firing. And you see what we're up against. So the movement to the strongman leader in many countries is a major threat, exacerbated by the even bigger threat of the technology being used against us.
I have a question for the three of you. Do you consider a threat or an opportunity what is called the citizen journalism? I always regard it like, how to drive a car, but you don't have a driver's license. But sometimes the citizens are in the middle of something and they try to, at least to get some attention to some kind of information. What do you think, Maria, starting with you?
It's both. I mean, the time when we called them citizen journalists was in 2005, 2007,
yes.
And then they became parts of our communities. They are both actors and sometimes the targets of manipulation, and that partly adds to the chaos of the landscape that we live in now. I don't think there's any easy way out of this. This is creative destruction, but whoever owns the platform, and I don't mean to just give that to the tech companies, but we used to be gatekeepers. When it was our home, we maintained the rules. We had an elaborate set of standards and ethics. I don't think tech companies can hide behind algorithms because the assumptions of algorithms are determined by humans. And so they need to clean up the cesspool that allows authoritarian rulers to game the algorithms to attack the truth. So this isn't, and again, I'll just jump to one last thing, which is this is connected to the global geopolitical landscape we're living in. Journalists have always known information is power. But this is determining the new power landscape. And that's something that's got to be addressed. And we need to actively sort this out. Otherwise, we're going to be Alice in Wonderland and the Mad Hatter will be in charge and no one will take responsibility for it.
Yeah, Karen, your thought about it, please.
Well, to your question about citizen journalism, I guess coming from journalism, journalism is a process, it's a set of ethics, it's a way of doing things, and I think it's important for us as an industry to stick with our standards. And I think you can use all types of information and all types of data or testimonials, but you need to be careful about how you structure the information and to have control of the editorial process. So that's my thoughts on that. To your point, I think it's crucial that it's not only we as journalists that are under threat here, it's also a fact that this type of information landscape that you are describing, it gives power to certain political forces. It's not neutral, it's not up for grabs for anyone. It gives power to people who are driven by who feed on rage and fear and kind of the lowest common denominator feelings, and that's not a neutral political space. So I think that's a very relevant point to us as journalists as well.
You know, I would just say, even within what we would all define as the universe of professional journalism, there is a range of credibility from the trusted brands to the less trusted brands. And that is the same within citizen journalism, and but it is a wider, more extreme range. Some of the journalists who lost their lives in this last year have been citizen journalists fighting for what they believe in. And so you have to look at the range, whereas others on the far end could be beyond less credible and into actively pushing disinformation, right? So it's all about, who can you trust? Unfortunately, technology has allowed everyone to have the same voice. And therefore, as Maria noted so eloquently, we have to work with the technology platforms that have enabled us to help fix that.
Maria, you told about your crowdfunding, still running, and so everybody can check on your website to contribute in some way. But the economic independence of news media is, of course, an essential condition of that freedom. How do you manage to get this balance?
Sorry, the balance of?
Between your economical independence, because
sure.
You need money.
Yeah, guys, we're nothing if our business doesn't survive. Yeah. All of us, correct? So we want our business to survive. And when we first started Rappler in 2012, we came with a kind of strange business model which uses the crowd. And because I came from television, I think CPCs and CPMs are really horrendous. So we brought our TV prices to the web. Thank you for the advertisers who came with us. But native advertising, all of that, I think the days of native advertising are gone, right? And now we've had to pivot. So we pivoted our business model. We now need crowdfunding, subscriptions or memberships. We're all playing with it. But this isn't where we will wind up. And I think that's part of the greater questions we will handle in the next 2 days. But let me put it this way. For a Rappler, we're looking at data, we're looking at technology, We're looking at the skills that journalists bring to the table. And we're very quickly, especially after the legal cases began, we're very quickly turning them into products that we are giving to companies who need it. Separate team doing that. Our business must survive in order for us to survive. The easy answer is that you want your community to pay for your journalism. In my country, the majority of our base cannot afford it. They can barely put 3 meals on their table. So I don't want to lose that because it's impact versus economics, right? So we're running at 1,000 miles an hour to find something that we create that we can then monetize. We have something interesting which we can share with you later on.
You can share it now.
I mean, I think we're all looking at all different types of revenue models, right? There isn't a one, it's not like the old days, like I keep saying, how I long for the old days. It's not like before when we had all the power, we owned the distribution, we owned the content. Now, we need to quantify what are the skills.
Entrepreneurship challenge.
Exactly, exactly, precisely.
Dave, you're
No, I totally agree. It's you know, where we're going here is a new world. We need the technological help. We have to stand by our guns and our trusted credibility. And we need to help each other, particularly help each other fight.
Yeah, because we need a strong advocacy to promote more solidarity in our sector. Do you think so? We need to help each other as
Yes, well, we had, and I know we're running out of time here, but we, just real quickly, we had our World Editors Forum board meeting this morning, and we have made great strides in the last year communicating with each other on a daily basis, not meeting once a year or twice a year in board meetings in fabulous resorts.
Fabulous, congrats.
Communicating on a daily basis, helping each other, using our reach to support each other, and we have to do that. Our enemies are trying to fragment us and conquer us by division. That is one of the ways we can fight back by working together.
So time is up. Karen, do you think this economic independence and the need for the money, as Maria was telling, could compromise the media challenge towards civil rights, towards human rights?
No, I think the problem for our business is that we need to do two things at the same time, and to have laser focus on both producing really good, high-quality journalism, but we also need to reinvent our business models, and of course that's draining in terms of energy. So, but that's the magic trick that we need to continue doing.
Can I quickly jump there,
Yes,
which is
of course.
that so I think part of it is we need to get back some of the revenues from the platforms. Sorry, my friends who are there, right? I mean, distribution is one thing, and they have, but when you look at how in each of our countries, the tech companies are taking up to 90% of the new digital ad spend, right? Up to 90%. I think the information.com in the United States estimates that it's up to 99% of all new digital ad spend is going to the tech companies, while we continue to spend for manual, experienced, skilled labor to actually give the information every society needs. There's got to be a new balance, and perhaps that's where we could collectively come together.
I hope at the end of these 2 days you can get some kind of commitment towards that big challenge. So thank you so much, Karen, Dave, and of course Maria. Congratulations once more, and hashtag keep going, girl. Thank you so much. Muito obrigada. Boa tarde. Shall we go?